All right, so thank you everyone for coming and welcome to our session. I know it's the very last session, so thank you very much for making it to the session, and I hope you will learn something useful today. So for this session, we're going to present the new capabilities in report and data analysis with analysis mode. And for our agenda today, we have a few things. So we will be looking into the newest capabilities for data analysis, also the new reporting features for AL and in runtime, and the easier development of reports with Word and Excel layouts. And then we'll have a short Q&A after the session, and if you have also any other questions during the session, just feel free to ask them in the application, and then we will also review those too. Yes. So before diving deep into each one of these new capabilities, let's take a step back and look at the report and analytics from an organization point of view. So it is clear that this is a very important aspect for many businesses to give them a good overview of their business processes, but different roles have also different data needs. So you can imagine that the higher you go up in the hierarchy, the more the need is greater for the data aggregation. So if you are, for example, in leadership, you might want more performance data and KPIs and dashboards. If you are more in a management level, then you might be more interested into trends or summaries or other reports. And then if you are in a more specialized role, then likely you need more to work more with specialized data and do that in a more dynamic way. So with the different needs, that also means that there are different tools for each of the different scenarios. So for example, in the management sector, you might work more with Power BI, whereas in the more specialized roles, you might work more with Excel or maybe the built-in tools in Business Central, like data analysis, where you can have a more hands-on experience with the data. But in this session, we will be focusing more in the new capabilities for the latter one. So we will look more into data analysis, Excel and Word. Yeah, and just out of curiosity to know our audience better, so can you just, I guess, light your light if you are a developer in the room? All right, or yeah, raise your hand so it works. Thank you. Okay, so looks like about half and half. All right, so as you can see, the world of reporting is changing. We have many different tools for the different needs. So just be aware that the next time a customer comes to you and asks you to build a report, you should refrain from just going with a typical short, just how should it be formatted? And just try to ask what do you want to analyze and what do you want to use it for? This way you can make sure that you pick up the right tool for the different needs, such as Power BI, or you can do a query and a list page data analysis within the client, or also maybe A reports with Excel or documents with Word layouts. And again, in this session, we will only look at the latest capabilities in the latter three tools that we have in Business Central. So first up, it's the newest capabilities in data analysis. How many of you know data analysis or analysis mode in BC? Okay, quite a few. Yeah, so for those of you who don't really know it, this is a feature that came in 2023, release wave 2, I think, yeah. And it allows you to do complex data analysis within the to list pages and queries directly from the web client and without needing a developer at all. And it has been a huge success for our end users. But one of the biggest limitations with this feature is that you are limited to the data that is already present in the list page or in the query. So if you want to work with more data, then that's when you need to involve a developer to either create a page extension or create a new query. So now you can analyze that. But we have solved this problem, this release, actually with a 26.2, which was released last Friday. So now you can also try this feature now. And what we have done is that we have now enabled customers to add, or end users, to add fields from related tables and pages directly in the web client and without having to call a developer to do it. So yeah, it's a huge step for users to self-service in that aspect. And I'm gonna go ahead and show you how it works directly from the web client. So we can look at our customer ledger entries. This is a list page. And to go into analysis mode, I can just click this button over here. And this is my list page in analysis mode. Again, so many of you are already familiar with this. But for those of you who don't, now you can do some operations with your data. You can hide or show columns. You can group your data. You can also put some filters directly from here. You can also do some aggregations. And you can also use the analysis assist feature, so you can do all these operations just with a natural language. But again, I'm only limited to the data that I have in this list page until now. So now if I go to the analysis tab, then I will find this new action here at columns from. And when I hover over that, then I will see a list of tables where I can add my fields from. So the first suggestion is that I can add fields from the underlying table. So in this case, the customer ledger entry. So I can add fields from this table that are not already exposed in the list page, as opposed to creating a list page extension. Or I can also add fields from tables that have a table relation to this underlying table in AL. So for example, these are the table names. And next to it, I can see that table relation that is defined in the AL code. And it can be that a table is related through multiple relations. So that's why I can have more than one entry here. So I can join, for example, the dimension value through different relations. And the ones that I show here is just a few suggested ones. But if I want the full list of all the tables and all the relations that I can use, I can go and click Other Source. But in this case, let's go ahead and click Currency. And you can see here, this will open a new pop-up window where I can see all the fields that belong to the currency table. But then, of course, users are usually more familiar with pages because that's what they use in their day-to-day life. That's what's surfaced in the client. So if you prefer, you can also select a list or a card page that implements this table. And yeah, you can also look at the full list. So in this case, I can pick the currency card. And now I can see all the fields that belong to the currency card page with the descriptions and some sample values. So now I can go ahead and select a few of those. Click OK. Then I get a small disclaimer about some functionality limitations, but nothing too big to worry about. And then once I do that, then I have to scroll all the way down to my list. And then I will see the new fields that have been added to my list. And then, of course, I can order them around, or I can also delete them if I no longer want them. And another thing that I can do is from, let's say I want a particular column. So I also have that column menu, and I can add the columns directly from here. So let's add more information about the customer, for example. Let's look for the city. So now I can add the city field. And now my field is added next to the customer name, so I don't have to move them around. Yeah, so as you can see, I just created a new dataset with the related fields directly from the web client and without having to involve a developer at all. And as you would expect, I can now perform the usual operations that I would usually do in analysis mode. So I can, for example, group by that. So here's my city field. So now I can group all my customer ledger entries by the city of the customer. I can also filter by that. So if I want to look just as the Chicago ones, for example, if I don't misspell it, it should work. Oops. Yeah, you got that one. I can also do the usual aggregations. So now I can see all the aggregations for the Chicago customers. And then I can also, if I want to do more data analysis, I can also export this to Excel. So I can just open that in Excel. And as you can see, it keeps my related tables that I have added here. And I can do more analysis in here. Yeah, so everything is supported here except Analysis Assist. So that's the only thing that is still not working with related fields, but there's some work on that. So yeah, that was it for the demo. Now I can show you a bit how it works under the hood, so you could understand better what's going on. And this is a combination of work between the server and the client. So the first thing that happens on the server side is that, as I told you, we kind of scrape all the AL code, and we get the table relationships that are that relate to the underlying table of that list page. And then we filter those tables. So we filter out the ones where the user doesn't have access to the table. We filter those internal ones. We filter the temporary ones and such, so we don't expose what we don't want to expose to the end users. And we send that list to the client. And then in the client, you see that list that we saw before. And then once the user selects the table that they want to use, then that's when we select the fields. We show the fields. And also these are filtered, so we don't show the fields that are internal or that are not supported in analysis mode. And then once we have the table relation and the field selected by the user, we send that to the server side, like also alongside the data operations that the user is doing in the client. And then on the server, we create a dynamic query. And this dynamic query is actually an AL object. And then we compile that AL object. And then we have an object that we can work with. And we perform all the transformations that are needed. And then we run that query, and we send that information back to the client, which is what the data that you see. And this is a bit more of how the dynamic query looks like. As you can see, there's a column for every field. There's also a data item for every table relation that you have. It's also possible to have the same table through multiple relations. And then you also see that the data item link corresponds to the table relation that you selected, which again also comes from the AL code. So that was it for the newest capability for data analysis, or the main one at least. And there's also a small, also a new capability. It's a smaller one. So in the GetURL AL method, you can now use you will now have a layout parameter. So now you can use this to, for example, open pages in analysis mode. So you can embed this URL in your AL code, and then when you click it, it can open it in analysis mode. And there are also some other values that you can use for that layout parameter. And that was it for what's new in data analysis. And now Mirko will go through some of the latest advancements in the document reporting.
Yes, thank you, Blanca. All right, so let's see now all the new capabilities that we introduced in the last couple of releases for reporting. And let's start from AL. First of all, it is now possible to use .NET formats for numbers. That means that we can now specify advanced formatting, like the one that we have here in the example, by using the auto format expression. So as you can expect, we can now finally support this case where, depending on the value of the number, we can properly format it depending on the use case. We know we have different cases, and sometimes we need some particular formatting from the customer. One small comment, this is only available for auto format expression. It is not available yet for format function. We also introduced a new trigger called OnPreRendering. And as part of this effort, we also added the capabilities to the server to append a list of PDF documents, to attach a list of documents to be embedded in the PDF, and to secure your document setting admin and user passwords. You can see this step as a step where we are collecting data that are then used later on when we are rendering the layout. We use this one in our effort to update the invoicing, but of course, as other triggers, you can use them for other purposes as well. And finally, as we are modernizing our layouts, we wanted to make our life, your life, and our customer life easier to handle different versions of layouts. And more specifically, we added 3 new AL properties to mark a layout as obsolete. So now in AL, you can set the obsolete tag, the state, and the reason. And this is also shown in the report layouts page. I will show that in a second. And it can be set through the UI in your uploaded layouts. And of course, I cannot mark your layout as obsolete, so I need to be the one uploading it. Now, let's move on the runtime side, and let's see all the small improvements here and there that can help you working with layouts. And to do that, let me switch to our environment. All right. Very first, I just want to show you the Exploring Reports page. And if you ever wonder if we have any reports in BC, this is a good place to start. We have quite a few. We now have an info icon here, which shows the about title, about text, so it explains what the report is about. And you can also now open the request page in a new window with this new action, so you can now run the report without leaving your session. And one reason why I wanted to tell you about this is that we are also using these properties in other functionalities, for example, in search, so that we can make reports more discoverable. I cannot say too much here, but we are also planning to use this one more broadly throughout the product. So it's a very small change, it's very little effort, but it can actually provide value to your customers. Now, let's visit the report layouts page, and let's take a look at what's new in here. Well, if we scroll all the way to the right, we can find now 4 new columns. The first one refers to what I was showing before. Now we can see if a layout is obsolete or not. So it's pretty easily visible from the UI as well. The second one is these Excel sheets. Some of you might already understand what it is. For the rest, and please bear a moment, let's park it. I will show you later in practice. And finally, we have these 2 new columns, last modified date and last modified by. Now you might be wondering why they're empty. That's just because it's these reports are from the base app, but you will see when I create a new one that those will be populated with my account. And these are meant to help you troubleshooting. If we focus on the action bar here, we can see that compared to 1 year ago, we have quite more options. First of all, we can now update and export the layout, and this action updates the layout with the latest metadata. We then can export the report schema. When we run this action, we download the custom XML. So think about a case where you have a Word layout, it's ready, the structure is really good, you only need now the Business Central data item so that you can populate it before uploading it again in Business Central. Well, you can simply come here, you download the XML, and then you import it in Word, and you're ready to go. In a similar way, but let's say that this time you want to create a new layout from scratch, and you already have the report object in Business Central. Now, when you create a new layout here, let's call it BC Tech empty, and let's use a Word. Now you have this option to create a blank layout. And what this does, if I toggle on, it will automatically create a new layout. And in this case, it's a Word. So it generates a Word document, which is empty. But of course, it's already including all the custom XML and everything you need to start building the layout. Finally, we have these 2 new actions here, which are meant, again, to help troubleshooting and handling customers. The first one is show layout info. This opens a very simple dialog with a few information available. You have the system ID here. This is the one that you can use in telemetry when you're investigating what happens in the log. And then you have the last modified date, the created date, and by. We know cases where the customer is complaining, the layout was working yesterday, today is printing something different. What happens, nobody knows. Then that's going to make it easier to understand, okay, who was it? Did something change in the meantime, and so on. And to support, again, this story, we also added a new action to validate the layout. When you run this one, we execute a number of validation steps. Of course, if they all succeed, the layout is validated. But if one of them fails, for example, let's say that the font validation fails, I know that's something that happens, I heard some cases like that, then you will have a good message saying, well, the font validation has failed, and then you have a good starting point to take the layout and fix it. One small comment for font validation, it is available on RDL, and it's not supported yet on Word and Excel, but the team is working on it, so that's coming very soon. All right, so these were quite a few small actions here and there, but overall they provide a good improvement to our experience. Now, let's see how we made working with Word layouts easier and more funny, and how we can make more flexible layouts. But before jumping into that, I know some of you might have this question, so let me have a small disclosure here. RDL is here to stay. Our investments in Word and Excel doesn't mean that RDL is being deprecated. We believe there are different needs, customers have different needs, and therefore we have different tools. I'm a developer, many of you are developers. We know there are complex scenarios where RDL just works better, so please keep using that for those cases. But we also believe, and that's why our investment in Word and Excel, that there are many other cases where we need simpler things, where we can offload the work, even to the customer. Customers are familiar with Word, are familiar with Excel. So sometimes we can use this new tool to make our life easier and help them empower our final customer to do whatever they need without us spending resources. So how can we do that? One small addition that we have today is the two new report metadata. The report metadata and the report request. These are always available, always included in the custom XML. And as you can see here in the screenshot, they provide very general data that you normally use, whatever report you're making. We have the report ID, the about, the title, the name. We have the username, the company, all of that. So you don't need to code them in AL anymore. They're going to be there no matter what. Just go and use them. How many of you have heard about the word add-in? OK, very little. Nice. So you're going to find out today. It's a few months now that in Office, you can go and download the Business Central Word add-in. It's the first version, and for now, it provides you the ability to add comments to a layout and to work and make the layout more flexible with conditional visibility controls. We also have fully support for sections. That means that we can now finally go and change properties like margins, orientation. We can add footers, watermarks, whatever you want to do with sections. It is now finally supported. So all of that, let's see how we can actually use these tools in Word. And let's take an example and see how we can make them more flexible and have more fun. So for today's demo, I have a small extension that generates some sample data. And I already have a layout. So let me run it and show you what we have today, what we're working on. So it's very simple, as you can see. Maybe I can zoom in a little bit. Yes, we have a sales order with a description, and we have a first table, which seems to contain a number of different objects, and this seems to be the main content of the layout. If we scroll even more, we have another table with additional info, something that looks more like appendix or things like that. So how can we improve that? There's a few things that I would like to improve. Let me show you how I can do that today. I keep the first tab open so that we can go back and forth and compare. So first thing, I will export the layout and open it in Word. All right. Cool. So if we look at the menu here, I already have the Business Central add-in. If you don't know how to do it, just go on the App Source, search Business Central, and you will find it. Otherwise, please refer to our documentation. There are tutorials, videos, or ask questions later on. We have two main sections here. The first one is layout controls, and the second one is help and support. I will quickly show you these links just because we have actually improved our documentation quite a bit. We have a lot of examples. I know it's a little bit hidden, that's why I'm showing it today, but it's inside here under programming, developing reports. So please go take a look. There are tutorials for word layouts, tutorials more specific for the word adding. But now let's move to something more interesting. Okay, if we look at the layout controls we have today, the first one is insert layout comment. This one, it inserts a control, and whatever content we insert inside the control will be hidden from the report when we render it. So you can use this one for documentation, you can use it for versioning, any kind of things that you want to have it when you're working with the layout, but you don't want to print it. And then if we expand this hide if empty group, we have 4 new actions. The first one is hide empty table, and as the name suggests, it allows you, when you apply it to a table, it allows you to hide the table if it doesn't contain any data. The second one is hide empty table row. This can be applied to any row of the table, and it must be applied to a data item. If this data item is empty, the whole row is removed. So you can conditionally show and remove rows. In a similar fashion, we have hide empty table column. This one must be applied to a repeater, and it must be applied to the column header, so to the data item of the column header. We'll see in a second. And when we do that, if all the rows of the repeater have an empty value for that column, then we can remove the whole column and free up space on the table. And finally, we have hide field if 0. This is not bound to any repeater or table. It can be applied to any data item. And as the name says, if the value of the data item is equal to 0, then it's hidden. So let's see how we can take advantage of that. Let's go back here. So the first thing, I'll zoom out a little bit. The first thing that I would like to improve here is that if I look at this column to hide is empty in this case. So it's taking up space, it doesn't provide any value, I would like to remove it. But I cannot simply remove the column because there's a second sales order which actually has value in there. So I want to do that conditionally, right? So how can I do that? Well, as I showed before, we have a new control for that. So I can simply come here. This is the column header that I want to conditionally remove. I select it, and then I click on hide empty table column. That's it. What else can we do here? Let's assume in this example that this field to hide is it's a field where my customer, it doesn't really make sense to be 0, but it happens to be a numeric field. So I want to show it if there's something in there, but if it's 0, I don't want to see it. It's just clutter. It doesn't make sense. So let me show how I can do that. In this case, I only want to work on the data item, so I can select it. All right, I can select it here and hit on hide field if 0. Again, very simple, very straightforward. And there's one final change that I would like to do. My customer has a weird question today, like he's asking me, he wants this layout to only show the objects that have an actual value here so that they have this row to hide greater than 0. So I would like to remove the first row and the second row, depending on the value. But if I go back here and expand the action menu, I have a hide empty table row, but there's no hide table row if equal to 0. But maybe what we can do is to combine 2 different controls. So let's see how we can do that. First of all, I'm selecting again the data item. And now the first thing I want to do is say, well, if the value is equal to 0, let's hide it. I don't want to see it. Done. And now I can try to apply a second control, which is if it's 0, hide it. If it's empty, hide the whole row. Let's see. All right. So now let's save. And now that we have all these changes, let's create a new layout and see if they all work. So let's call it BC TechDays new Word. And let's run the report. All right. So as you can see here, we already see something happen. Let's see if it happened the right thing. OK, so the first column, the first thing we wanted to do was to remove this column if it was empty. And if we go back here, we can see that now the first sales order doesn't have that column anymore. The whole space is used better. I have no clutter in there. But what's important also is that if I scroll down, this one, the second order, I have values, and the column is still there. Second of all, we wanted to hide this field to hide in case the value was equal to 0. And if we take a look here, the field to hide is now empty. So that worked as well. And finally, as you can probably already see from the fact that we only have 2 rows and we don't have 4 rows anymore, just double check. The first one and the third one had a 0 value in the last column, and therefore they have been deleted. So we can combine 2 different controls together and have kind of a combination effect. OK, there's one final thing that I would like to improve here. And if you look at this additional info table, this is more appendix, and it takes a lot of space. It's a lot of text. So I would like to move it, maybe put a landscape, and I would like also to make the main page add a footer, something like that. So let me show you how we can do that with sections, which, since I mentioned that we now support sections, let's see it in practice. So I can come here, and in layout, I can add a next page section break. Now these are 2 different sections. And for this one, I want to change the orientation to landscape so they can take all the space. We can optimize it. And finally, for the main page, in case we have a lot of orders, I just want to, I want to add a footer. Let's go with a simple one. All right. And now I want to unlink this one. And since on the second page I don't need it, I'm just going to remove it. There you go. So let's go back here and update the layout. Let's run the report one last time. And as you can see now, we have the first page is clear. We have our footer. Of course, we could have way more things here. And the second one is landscape orientation, and so on. So this is a very simple case to showcase that now we can support sections. You can think about using watermarks and many other kind of things. OK, now that we have our new layout, I want to show you what I mentioned before, that you can obsolete a layout from the UI. So how can you do that? Well, let me do that with the old one, which I don't like it anymore. I can simply edit info, and now we have a new toggle mark layout as obsolete. And that's it. And now it's also shown here. Now, as a small suggestion, you probably also want to reflect that on a title or the description, but this is how you can do it. All right. OK, we also have a few other small improvements here and there. I don't have time today, but please go and check out our videos, check our documentation. There's a lot of more content in there. We also didn't forget about Excel, and we have a few improvements there that I would like to share with you. First of all, we now have a new AL property called Excel Layout Multiple Datasheets. How many of you already know this one? OK, not that many. I expected more. But for those who know, you might be wondering, well, but that already existed. And that's correct, because it existed, but it was only for the report object. Now we introduced it for the layout object as well. So now every layout can override the report default value. And this is, again, it's also available on the UI, and it's also visible on the UI. So every layout might have different needs, and then you can specify whatever you want. Since we have a little time, I will show you how you can do that. So let's say we create a new layout here. Let's call it BC TechDays Excel. All right. Excel. Let's create an empty layout for simplicity. And now you can see that we have a new property. We can default to the report object, or we can use a specific one for this one. I'll go with a multiple datasheets layout. And we can see here in the column that I showed at the beginning. OK. And finally, how many of you have ever written something like this in Excel? OK, I see a few people. Did you like it? No, I see. I agree. I agree. Well, for now on, you don't need to do it anymore, because we introduced what we call named formulas, which under the hood is a very simple mapping between a readable name and these XLOOKUP formulas. And you can see all of them in Formulas Name Manager. And if we take a very quick look, if we download this layout and I open it in Excel, let's go here. Let's say that in this cell, I want to show the company name, then I can simply type equal, as for any other functions, and search for company name. And you see here, I can select, and there you go. And again, if you want to explore more, formulas, name manager, and you can see here we have mapped a lot of different functions that are commonly used. And of course, you can build your own. Great. So we have 10 minutes left. I know we also maybe a bit over time from the previous one, so we have 5 minutes to 3, but I will take 1 minute to show you a sneak peek of what's coming in 27, because I mentioned a lot we are modernizing our layout, so let's see something about it. This is our old production order statistics, and now from the next release, we are going to have 2 new layouts, one for Word, one for Excel. The reason why we're having 2 is because looking at our telemetry, we noticed both use cases. So there's people printing the layouts, there's people downloading and exporting the layout, so that's why we are going for 2. And if I show you some other example here, you can notice that we are trying to keep a consistent look throughout all the layouts. So that's what you can expect coming. All right, so if you have any doubts, if you don't know how to use something, if you want to explore more, you have a lot of references here. These are very specific to analytics and reporting. So I'll give you a second, and we will also share the slides. If you want to see all the other small features that we introduced and we haven't had time today to cover, please go and watch the launch event. There's a little bit more, both for data analysis and for reporting. And of course, if you have any question for General Business Central, you have the links here. So now we have some time left. If you have any questions, Blanca and we are here, and we can answer. And if you have questions after the session, as Blanca mentioned before, feel free to write them in the app.
Also get a t-shirt.
Yeah, yeah, well. All right, let's give it a try.
Okay, so about RDL reports. So I understand that the most improvements are in Excel and Word layouts, but maybe you have something planned for RDL reporting, or, well, you should just forget about them.
Yes, okay. So I can say pretty honestly, so I cannot say much, right? But also things can change. But we don't have plans to improve, or we are not investing right now in improving RDL, which again, I want to stress, it doesn't mean we are removing or we are planning to remove RDL. That's not the case. We are just simply, our resources for now, we are trying to improve the story in Word and Excel layouts. So that's a pretty straightforward. But we know it's important for you guys, and that's why it's staying.
And there's also another question over there, and a t-shirt.
Yeah.
And
Okay.
there's also one there.
I'll go there first and come to you. There you go.
Thanks. When using Word layouts, I had a document with several levels, and they are asked to add a nested level, and I didn't get it. Is there an improvement in the future for that?
Yes, so I think I understand the question. We do support some level of nesting,
Yeah.
but not all cases. Sometimes it can be very, let's say, very specific. But yes, we do. I can say that we are planning to improve that scenario as well.
So to add a level or a nested level?
To support more nesting levels, to make it more and more.
Yeah, you have almost, you can nest it now, but I had to add it in an existing document. I had to add a next level or a nested next level. So I didn't succeed at it. So I had to create the document again.
Okay, so you didn't manage to use the existing layout.
Yes, I had the existing layout.
Okay.
For example, an invoice.
Okay.
And you have to add a new level. All nested or not nested, that's not important, but I didn't succeed. And I was wondering, is there a future solution for it?
Okay, so there are 2 parts of this question. The first one is, when we work with layouts like this, they might be very specific. And for that, please, we can talk later, reach out, because we are very happy to help. We have many cases in Yammer where the partner reached out to us and said, I have the very specific case. It doesn't work. And actually, in a couple of times, it became a new feature. Like we supported the hide row at the beginning was only for repeaters, and because of one of you guys having a problem, we actually extended and now supports all the rows, so it doesn't need to be a repeater. So that's the first thing. In general, yes, we are planning to add more capabilities and support more cases or more nesting and more complicated scenarios, even for conditional, not only limited to tables, not only limited to repeater. So yes, that's the plan.
In analysis mode, we have pivot mode, and it shows us group data. But now the result is not interactive. Do you have any plans to make this result data interactive, that a user can click on it and show based on which job entries or other entries the results are calculated?
So what do you mean with interactive?
Like when you have flow field, you click on it and you show the data set that based on which this value was calculated. And do you have plans to make the same in analysis mode in pivot? Navigating, yeah.
I don't think there are plans for it now, but there might be if you think it's a good idea and you get it. Yeah. Exactly, that's what I was going to say. Yeah. If you think that's a good idea, put it in BC ideas, get some votes, and then it will be prioritized.
And then also, I just want to stress again, Yammer will listen to it, and especially for reporting, I know the PM very closely. He's very active in there. And we have cases where before starting developing, we come there, we ask you guys, we are planning to do this, this, and that. What do you think? And then we get feedback so that we can start from iteration 1 to get it closer to what you need and not only what we have in mind, because many times it needs, different iterations. Let's try. Watch out. There you go.
You showed the query, like the behind the scenes of the analysis view. Are we able to get those queries?
Not at the moment.
Because that would be kind of useful to just, get the analysis mode and then just get the query and then perhaps build a report out of the query.
It is not possible right now, but it could be useful. Of course, you would have to deal with any of the issues with IDs.
Yeah, of course. I mean, just getting the bulk coded query would be useful.
Again, PC ideas or... But yeah, not possible at the moment.
I see.
Any more? Okay.
Is there a way to publish document attachments with the e-documents feature? You talked about it briefly earlier.
So there's not for now. It might happen, but there's some. So some of you might be asking, okay, why is a trigger? Why we don't have an AL API? I guess, and it makes sense. There's some licensing issues that we are trying to smooth out. That's the main point. So that's why we have to expose it in this kind of way. So if we manage to resolve all those issues, yes, we will also we would also like to give you more power in that sense. Just do whatever you want, kind of thing. But yeah, there are some complications in that sense.
Oh, okay, thank you.
So I cannot guarantee because it's not really a technical problem. It's more licensing problem.
Okay. Yeah. Thanks.
Oh, no worries. Any other one? There.
So yeah, I'm curious. I just before came from another session, and there it was like, okay, RDL. If you haven't learned it yet, don't learn it because it's overdue. You're saying it's not going to go, but it's not supported anymore.
Well,
as soon as security issues arise, they will just have to eliminate it. So
I guess the question is, should I invest my time on RDL or not? Is it?
Yeah, but it's contradictory. So some say it's gonna be faded out because it's overdue, and we're gonna put all effort on Word and Excel.
Okay,
and we don't have the same features yet, but
yes. So I understand the sentiment of saying, well, Microsoft is investing all the other ones. That means today they don't tell me that they are deprecating, but that we are going to lose RDL. What I can say is that that's not the case. It's just a matter of what we are investing, what we believe we can provide more value right now at the current stage, And that's where we believe we have a lot that we can improve in Word and Excel. And RDL, for now, we are not planning to expand it, but there's definitely no plan for now to remove anything. So I wouldn't say that you should be concerned about it. That's what I'm saying.
I'm not concerned, but it's I don't know what's
yeah, I
to
understand.
think of it now. That's more the thing.
No, so again, the reason why I sent that message was to reassure that RDL is staying, because we know it's a concern that people had, and it's a reasonable looking at where we're investing, you might think that way, but that's not the case. That's all I can say.
Okay, thank you.
No problem.
So a question on the joins. How many levels deep can you go? Is it just one relation, or is it multiple deep with analysis view? And
You can do as many as you want. I guess there are no restrictions. It's like creating a query, right? But all the joins are done on the base table, right? So you cannot chain joins to. So you join to one table with another one, and then you change the next join to that table. That's not possible at the moment. All the joins are done on the base table. But maybe we could support that in the future if it's needed.
and is it only for analysis view, or is it also something you would consider for personalized, that users can add fields on their pages?
So for now, it's just analysis view.
Okay, thank you.
Any other question? Yeah.
My question is, if you do a report extension and have programming in it that you know will only be used in your new layout, would it be then best practice to actually code it in a way in saying only use this code if this layout is used, so not to clutter it?
I'm not sure I understand the question. Maybe can you rephrase it?
So maybe you make a report extension for the sales invoice.
Yeah.
And the customer says, in my new layout, I want to see if the line is if the sales invoice was linked to assembly order.
Okay.
That the assembly components are posted, or the BOM components. And this isn't standard for the already existing Microsoft layout, and it's only in your layout that you then program your report extension to only get the new data item if it's your layout that is being printed.
Okay. So okay, let me ask you something. What is your concern here?
My concern is that we currently have a customer that has 2 other third-party extensions that also has report extension for the sales documents, but they want us to make a very specific layout for them with even more extensions.
Yeah.
And we want to and the data that is the whole data set that is given to the report layout is very, very cluttered now.
All right. Yeah.
And we want to reduce the clutter, but also don't want to, of course, to result in that the other layouts can't be printed anymore because something now is missing or the data is different or something. So we were thinking about programming stuff like only do this code if this layout is selected to be printed.
Okay. Okay. Well, I would say you can follow the. So I have also another comment later, but I would say you can follow the approach of either having a new report and try to. I guess it really gets to the case where how much overlap you need between the two, right? If you have a lot of overlap, then it might make sense what you're doing. If you can differentiate the two things, then it might be easier to say, let me have a smaller one that works with the new one, and I don't have clutter. But what I would like to say is that one of the investments that we have right now is to improve the experience in Word for working with a custom XML. So that's something that might help you. I believe it might help quite a bit in the future. So I know today we are working with this custom XML, right, which is not the nicest, and we want to build an experience where it's much easier to use it. And I'm saying this because it might help your case where the report has a lot of data item, and it's kind of complex to work with it, but then in the future might be easier, even though you have a lot of them.
Okay.
So it's
thank
just something to keep in mind because it's something that we are working on right now.
you. Can I ask another
Yes, of course.
Is there any thought to allowing query to be used as a data item in reports, or should we just use an integer data item and then go from there?
Not that I know. Not that I know.
Okay.
I don't know if Blanca, if you know a little bit more about it, if we have any plan in that sense.
About what, sorry?
If we can support query in data
Query as a
item.
data item instead of just tables.
No,
Yeah.
as for pages, no. But I mean, you can publish a query and then you will see the query as in BC, right?
No, as a data item in a report.
Oh, no, yeah, no.
Okay.
No.
But yeah, no. But I guess this could be again a BC idea, or
Yeah.
we should. Here I would need help from the PM to be.
But
fair.
Mirko, yeah, we were saying if we just cut it short and then we can just answer the questions maybe. At
Yes, yes, of course. So if you have any other question, please come there, and so that. Thank you.